Last weekend was a very long and difficult weekend for Mercedes, and even more for Lewis Hamilton. The 7-time world champion couldn't even make it into the top 10 at Imola. Is this the beginning of the end for Lewis Hamilton? Nobody could have imagined the once untouchable Lewis Hamilton and his Mercedes car to fall off like they did this season. Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton are looking like nowhere near to competing for race wins at this moment. After only 4 races, Lewis Hamilton is 7th in the Drivers' Championship, with only 28 points. With most of his points coming from the first race of the season, where he finished 3rd after both Red Bull cars had to retire with a fuel pump issue. The next 3 races, Hamilton only finishes 10th, 4th, and even 13th last weekend in Italy, meaning he only competed for the podium in 2 of the 4 races, where he normally competes for the win in every race. So what is happening at Mercedes? And does this mean that the 7-time world champion is nearing his exit in the sport? Stay tuned until the end of the video to know why this could be the last season in F1 for Lewis Hamilton. Let's dive right into the topic. As we all know, Lewis Hamilton joined Mercedes in 2013 after driving for McLaren for 6 years. The last years have been highly successful for Hamilton and his Mercedes team, picking up 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships and 6 Drivers' Championships. There is no arguing about the fact that Lewis is up for the debate for being one of the greatest ever to drive in F1. So why are the performances lacking this season? And what could have possibly happened to make Lewis Hamilton reconsider driving in F1? First things first, Lewis is accustomed to winning. And right now, the Mercedes car is heavily underperforming, making Lewis and his teammate George Russell unable to fight for race wins. While the latter doesn't seem to be affected too heavily by Mercedes' performance issues, having outscored Hamilton in 3 out of the 4 races this season, and currently sitting in 4th place in the Drivers' Championship with 49 points. So, is the car really to blame here? Toto Wolff certainly thinks so. He even made sure to tell Lewis over the radio just after finishing 13th at the Imola GP. "Sorry for what you've needed to drive today. I know this is undrivable, and not what we deserve to score as a result." Former teammate Nico Rosberg told Sky Sports F1 that this was Toto's way of protecting Hamilton and not telling the truth. Rosberg further elaborated on this, telling Sky Sports, "Mercedes are taking the blame themselves, really trying to support Lewis mentally, lifting him up and saying, 'Hey Lewis, it's not your doing, it's really on us.' That's very smart, because it's not quite the truth." Rosberg later added that the Mercedes car is indeed capable of scoring points by pointing out that Hamilton's teammate George Russell came 4th in the same car. Let's not forget that Russell is in P4 with that same car, so Lewis definitely had a big role to play in that poor result this weekend. Russell still managed to get P4 out of it with a brilliant weekend, so there was more in that car. What do you think about Toto Wolff's comments on the car? Is he protecting a poorly driving Lewis Hamilton? Or is George Russell capable of achieving more out of a poorly designed car? Let us know in the comments below. But why are people saying that this is Lewis's last season driving for Mercedes or even in F1? Former F1 champion Mika Hakkinen believes that George Russell making his way to the top, combined with a weaker Mercedes car, will lead to Lewis Hamilton considering leaving Mercedes entirely. After all, Lewis is accustomed to winning, and finishing behind Red Bull and Ferrari every race weekend will not be in line with his own goals. If Hamilton wants to win that record 8th Drivers' Championship, he will have to reconsider driving for Mercedes. Mika Hakkinen said the following about the subject, "But I'm sure Lewis is annoyed by the situation. It's hard to be beaten by George. I'm afraid this will be a really difficult season for Lewis. It's already difficult for Mercedes, but especially for Lewis. George comes from a team with little or no success. He had some good results in qualifying, but not in races. All these achievements with Mercedes are new to him. Everything feels super good. For Lewis, this is a disaster. And George being ahead, it's even worse. I wonder how Lewis behaves in the team meetings. I bet he's sulking. I can imagine the sulking. There's lots of complaining and whining. And now starts the natural thought process of drivers. Should I go somewhere else? It's a fact. He's been at Mercedes for several years and won multiple championships. Now that things are not going well, he'll start thinking of switching teams. He'll consider transferring teams now that things aren't going smoothly. Of course, this is just speculation, and considering that Hamilton is under contract with Mercedes until the end of 2023, it's doubtful that he'll leave anytime soon. As his desire to participate dwindles, Lewis Hamilton's age makes it considerably more probable that he'll quit from the sport totally, especially after his terrible loss at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix last year, after which he eventually decided to return to the sport. Upon returning to the sport, Hamilton gave the following comments. Naturally, at the end of any season, for those who are around my age of course, you're thinking about the future, about what are the next steps, the right steps for you to take, and what is right for you in terms of overall happiness. I always evaluate all of my options, but I did make a commitment to the team last season, and ultimately, I love what I do. I love being part of the team, working with everyone towards a common goal. I feel like I'm at my best, so why do I need to leave? This definitely gives us the impression that Hamilton isn't stopping anytime soon. But it's important to note that these comments were made before the start of the season. And just like Hakkinen says, Lewis's thoughts could be completely different now after the last 4 races, which could mean that the champion could be on the lookout for another team or even consider retiring. But what if Lewis decides he wants to drive for another team? Where could he go? Right now, Ferrari and Red Bull have a car capable of delivering race wins, but both teams have a stronger driver pairing. With only Red Bull having a driver, Sergio Perez, with a contract expiring at the end of the year. But his current performances might suggest that Red Bull will be trying to extend his contract for at least another year. What do you think Lewis Hamilton will decide? Will he stay at Mercedes and hope for a miracle that they'll be able to make the car compete for race wins again? Or will he leave Mercedes and try to gain a seat at another team or even retire? Let us know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible content about Formula 1. After the sprint race in Imola, Hamilton stated, "We're obviously not fighting for this championship," which became even more obvious finishing in the 13th place at Sunday's Grand Prix. "I mean, I'm out of the championship," Hamilton said. "There's no question about that." His team boss Toto Wolff, who's normally optimistic, even said the following. "It's obvious that we are not anywhere near the fight at the front, and it would be pretty unrealistic to claim to have a slot among the front runners who are fighting for the championship. This weekend definitely showed us that Mercedes are not able to fix their ongoing problems soon, as they would have hoped. All of this could even further confirm Hamilton's bad feelings about staying at Mercedes for next year. The current situation at Mercedes is complicated. Right now, they simply don't understand where they've got it wrong with their W13 design, which makes it frustrating for the team to make decisions, as they're unsure which decisions will lead to improvements. So to summarize, Hamilton is in a tough spot right now. From losing to Verstappen in the last lap of the season last year, to now driving a car that's making him unable to gain his 8th world title. It's definitely gone downhill for one of the greatest of the sport. As things are standing right now, Hamilton will have to deal with this car for at least some races to come, as the Mercedes team are unable to quickly fix the issue. This concludes today's video. Let us know in the comments what you think about Hamilton's situation. What choice should he make? Should he stick to being a Mercedes driver? Will it be in his best interest to look for a seat elsewhere to claim his 8th title? Or should it be the best decision for him to leave F1 and retire? We'd love to hear your thoughts. That's it for now. Subscribe to see more of our content, and we'll see you in the next one.